Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another edition of the NASCAR Fantasy Podcast on the channel. We are having our live race review once again, this time taking place from yesterday's Firekeepers Casino 400 at the Michigan International Speedway. Before we get into that race analysis, like, share, and subscribe for more daily NASCAR content, part of a double-header Monday night of action on the channel, because after this, we will have, yes, our next NASCAR Heat 5 Career Mode race, and it will be at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway on the Indianapolis Road Course. So let's get into this one quickly, but boy, we have a lot to talk about. And of course, for those of you that don't know, I was in person at the race yesterday, and I have to say, Ryan Blaney finally, after 23 Cup Series races that I've been to in person, got the win, and I am pumped about it. I still am pumped about it to this day. I cannot believe it happened, and we'll get to watch together what my live reaction was while it happened. We got a couple clips to play it for you guys as well. Those clips are already up on the channel as well. So again, like, share, and subscribe for more daily NASCAR content. So anyway. Let me get in. Give me one quick second here. I got to get the chat up because the chat is not pulling up on my end for whatever reason. So let me do that real quick. Sometimes I have issues with that, and I don't know why. Okay, there we go. The chat is now up. So, yeah, thanks for everybody tuning in again here today. Usually in the predictions video, we end up having the predictions, a couple drivers you should stay away from, a couple drivers that you could have for potential sleeper picks, and then a couple drivers that you should stay away from, that you should pick in your fantasy lineup. So we'll go through all that as well. Like to go in chronological order as well, starting off with stage one. And again, I think I can give you guys a very in-depth analysis as always, but more so with being at the track in person. So we start off with stage number one. Of course, Kyle Larson started on the pole. Chase Elliott started outside pole in second. And that left, I believe, Ryan Blaney and, oh man, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think Kurt Busch was outside row two. Anyway, we know Kyle Larson and Chase Elliott were on the front row for the race yesterday, and got off to a quick start with Kyle Larson jumping to the lead and pretty much leading every lap up into the competition caution. Actually, Matt DiBenedetto snuck in there, led like one lap side by side on like lap 2 or lap 3, trying to get to the lead. But other than that, Kyle Larson pretty much dominated the first 20 laps of the race. It got to the competition yellow where everybody came onto pit road because if they pitted then, that they would be able to make it all the way to the end of stage one on fuel. So that is what we saw. And then sure enough, we ended up seeing a little bit of a variation in the pit stops going forward from there. Change in the running order, and that led Kyle Larson to restarting on the front row again. Chase Elliott was able to get back up to second place, and then on the restart, it was Chase Elliott who was actually running in line behind Kyle Larson there for a little bit, was able to pull out and make a pass. Great battling throughout the top five all the way through stage one between not only Kyle Larson, Chase Elliott, but then Kyle Busch started to join the fray later in the stage. Denny Hamlin was up there. At times, Kurt Busch was up there, and then I think by the end of the stage, consistently, Austin Dillon was up there as well, which kind of took me a little bit by surprise. But I did mention over the last couple of weeks that he has ran well at Michigan in the past. I've been going to at least 2 Michigan races a year, obviously when I had 2 races a year, from both races 2018, both races 2019, of course, this year's race, and then my first ever race was at Michigan because it's my home track in August of 2015. And Austin Dillon seems to run really well. I can vividly remember from my first ever race that Austin Dillon almost went to victory lane in that said race. So it was definitely, I wouldn't say shocking to me at least that Austin Dillon was having that good of a day. But for more people saying, I mean, he ran well. He had a chance to win. We'll get into his accident a little bit later. As far as the stage one results go, Chase Elliott was able to hang on and win stage number one. Kyle Larson was second by a nose over Austin Dillon, who was third. Denny Hamlin was fourth. William Byron showed up inside the top 5 there. He also started towards the front of the field. Joey Logano was seventh. Sixth. Matt DiBenedetto seventh. Kurt Busch eighth. Kyle Busch fell back to ninth. and Brad Keselowski rounded out the top 10. In stage number 2, we saw the Hendrick Chevrolets take off once again early on in the stage. Chase Elliott ended up having a bad pit stop under the stage break, though. He lost a bunch of positions there. As well, did not have a great restart, so it was left to Kyle Larson and William Byron being the two Hendrick cars out towards the front of the field. And there was a little bit of a teamwork alliance going on there. I couldn't hear it over the MRN broadcast on the loudspeaker, but you could see and tell if you were at the racetrack, knowing if you were familiar with NASCAR, that the 24 and the 5 were teammates. They were obviously working together. The draft was a big part of stage 1, stage 2, and stage 3. The difference between stage 1 and stage 2, and even stage 3, was that in stage 1, the 5 drivers you had up there, while you did have a couple of Hendrick Chevys in the top 5 of Kyle Larson, Chase Elliott, they were very rarely 1-2, so they weren't really able to draft away from the pack like you had seen with Byron and Larson in stage 2. It was 2 Hendricks against a few other cars on the restart. Again, Kurt Busch was up there. Byron was up there, but he wasn't in the top 3 to work with those top 2. Kyle Busch was up there. And then Denny Hamlin started to put on the charge there for a little bit as well. So with all those, factors into there, again, in Austin Dillon, so it really was like a 6-car pack. The teammates could not get linked up together outside of the 24 and the 5. And they were running different lines in the corners so that way they could stay nearly full throttle. They would barely have to lift if they had to lift at all. And because they were putting the dirty air on literally anybody who ran behind them by one taking the top, one taking the bottom, there was nowhere for the third, fourth place car to go that they weren't going to be in dirty air more often than not. They were just slowly kind of gapping them and pulling away because of it. When you get put in that dirty air, you have to get out of the gas a little bit more because the car wants to shove up the racetrack a little more. It just all of a sudden just gets super tight. So that's why they were able to pull away because, I mean, again, they were just simply drafting. It was almost like tandem racing at Daytona and Talladega, even if they weren't physically bump drafting each other around the racetrack. Jackson Thomas, Super B-Man 1, welcome to the stream. We are throwing a channel party for Blaney's win. Yeah, hopefully. And that was awesome. And we'll get to watch that finish right here on the channel as well together. At the track, I just cannot get to you because there were a lot of people there. TV, when I watched the highlights on the way home, because I didn't drive, I went with, we had a bunch of my family members there, but I ended up going with my dad, and he drove his truck. But so I was watching on the way home, like the highlights of the race that NASCAR uploaded and that NBC Sports uploaded and stuff. And they didn't do it as much justice as, say, like my camera angles, and at least where I was sitting, it was packed. Turn 1 was the only spot, and then right off the exit of turn 4, those first like maybe 2 sections off 4, that's where people were kind of scattered. But if you were anywhere from like pit road entry to pit road exit, it was completely packed. It looked like, at least from my perspective. So that was definitely a lot of fun. It was the most packed Michigan race I think I've been to since 2015, which was the first race I ever went to. And that's saying something because that's when Tony Stewart, Dale Jr., Jeff Gordon, Jimmy Johnson were all still racing at that time period. So they were the bigger draws for sure. Matt Kenseth, I could go on. Biffle, I mean, all those names. Case Gain, of those legends that were in the 2000s into the early 2010s. So that was definitely great to see. It was definitely a great atmosphere. Plus, it was the first race at Michigan with fans since 2019, so that was a big part of it. And it's only one race instead of 2, so as far as the locals that, don't go to both races to try and save money, so they try to make sure they go to one, they only had one chance to get there this year. So I think that definitely helped with the ratings. I think more tracks should try doing that too. I've been saying that for the last couple of years at least, that there's no need to go, and it hurts for me to say that because Michigan had 2 dates. I love going to a track that was an hour and a half away from me twice, knowing I could sleep in my bed the day before and the day after the race. But we don't have to go to Michigan twice. It's not like there's a crown jewel in there that you would have to consider running twice. There's no reason to go to Kansas or Las Vegas twice or Texas twice. I mean, there's just no reason to go to these tracks 2 times on the schedule, Atlanta, so on. The only tracks we should go to twice, in my opinion, are your biggest draws, the ones that fill in the seats both on the race weekend at the track and then get the TV viewership. That's Daytona, that's Talladega, and to a certain extent, I think it's Bristol, at least with the night race. And I'm slowly kind of getting into, obviously, why I understand why they did the dirt race. And if that starts bringing in fans too, then that's just the way it's going to have to be. But regardless of the fact, we'll go back to the Michigan highlights. Ethan, welcome to the stream as well. It was in the middle of pit road. Gotcha. So you were probably like right on the start finish line then. I was like probably 2/3 of the way. I wasn't quite at the exit of pit road, but I was pretty close to it. Yeah, about 2/3 of the way down the front stretch. Definitely during one of the faster parts of the racetrack, to say the least. They were still on throttle when they were getting to that portion of the racetrack. So in stage 2, again, the teammates of Byron and Larson started pulling away. Pit stops came in the final 10 to 15 laps of the stage, where we saw some drivers who stayed out the latest take fuel only or right side tires only so they could cycle back to the lead, versus those drivers that took 4 tires to get those stage points. And realistically, knowing that you were going to have to pit at the stage break if you took no tires or if you took 2 tires, it only was going to work, in my opinion, for one person, and that was Kyle Busch, who won the stage and got the playoff point. For a guy that has a win, that took that strategy, like Christopher Bell, that put him back in traffic, and he was never able to get back into this race after the fact. The only other guy I guess I will have a pass for somebody trying that strategy would have been Austin Dillon, but he didn't try that strategy. He took 4 tires when he was on pit road. Because he is fighting for points for the playoff spots there. So I don't blame him completely if he wanted to try that strategy. But the Joe Gibbs Toyotas had tried that, and it worked out for Kyle Busch. It did not work out for Christopher Bell. And we saw in the final stage it hurt Kyle Busch's race finish, or it took him a long time to get up towards the front of the field, and I don't think he ever got back inside the top 5 after that as well. So risk versus reward. Kyle Busch took the playoff point there, maybe thinking he didn't have the car, and say the Hendrick cars did, that it was better for him to just take the points right there. So, hey, good on Kyle Busch. It worked out for him. Also, Christopher Bell again finished second in stage 2. Kyle Larson was third. He was the first driver on 4 fresh tires getting around Elliott, cycling ahead of him off of pit road. Chase Elliott was 4th. Denny Hamlin was 5th. And then the incident between Austin Dillon and Brad Keselowski, who finished 6th and 7th in stage number 1. I almost got that on camera. So, for those of you that, most of you don't know my setup. So, when I go to the track and I get the film for the race highlights when I'm at the racetrack, what I'll do is, obviously, the start of the race, I'll go anywhere between 1 to 3 laps. It depends, like how racy it is off the start or restarts. I don't want to do every restart because I want to actually watch it a couple times. So 1 to 2 restarts a race I won't videotape, but I'll videotape like every other restart outside of the 1 or 2 I decide to not do it. And usually those are earlier in the race, just to watch without the camera, and so I'm not videotaping the entire race. So 1 to 3 laps on the restarts in the initial start of the race. 1 to 3 laps at the end of the stage. If it's a close enough battle, it's usually like the final 3 laps of the stage. If it's kind of strung out and there's not really a battle at the end of the stage or the end of the race, it's just the final lap or the final 2 laps of the stage. So that's kind of how I factored in. And then I tried to make sure 3 times, usually once each stage. So once in stage 1, once in stage 2, once in stage 3, I'll videotape for a green flag battle. Usually if it's for the lead, but if it's anywhere close to the lead, like 2nd, 3rd, 4th, if it's a really good battle, I'll videotape it for a few laps. So that's kind of like my program. And then I try to make sure I get a set of green flag stops in there and a set of caution lap pit stops in there as well for videotaping. And that's how I get all, that's my program. That's what I started doing last year when I started vlogging these videos and started doing the race highlights and posting them on YouTube. And then this year as well, I've continued to just run that same bit. So at the end of stage 1, I videotaped, I think, the final 2 laps of that stage because there was a good battle between Chase Elliott and Kyle Larson and Denny Hamlin. Great battle for 3rd place there. And I knew those guys took 4 tires, so they were probably going to stay out of the pits. That would have been the battle for the eventual lead at the end of stage number 2. So I filmed that. Kyle Busch crossed the start-finish line. And then Denny Hamlin, Chase Elliott, Kyle Larson, they just crossed the start-finish line, and I ended the film. I saw Austin Dillon and Brad Keselowski wreck. I just didn't have it on. I literally ended the camera film probably 3 seconds before that happened because they were in 6th and 7th, probably a couple seconds behind that group of 3 that I was just talking about So, once they crossed the line, I figured I was like, I'm not going to wait for all 10 of them to cross the line. Sure enough, a huge accident happened, and it was right in front of me when Austin Dillon had gotten hooked off the front bumper of Brad Keselowski's race car, and he hit the wall head on at a really bad, really awkward angle, and almost flipped. His impact into the wall was right in front of me. We could see, vividly. Me and some of my family that were like all talking about it. I was like, "Whoa, did you see that? Whoa, what happened?" So we could like see the impact and then the bottom of his race car because he was up on like his driver's side. So I guess it'd be like this. I don't know. Anyway, so we saw like the we saw the underneath the race car when he was skating on his driver's side and it came back on all four. So that was like kind of like right in front of us. And boy, that would have been like an epic shot. Glad he was okay first and foremost as well, because that was a very scary accident. It's definitely the scariest accident I've ever seen at Michigan in the 6 races I've seen there in person. It definitely a hard hit. Trip to the infield care center, he was all right. As far as the incident itself, at first when I saw it, I thought Brad just hooked him because it happened so quick. And then on the replay, and the replay cam and stuff, which I didn't see the replay for a while because our Videotron, like midway through stage 2, went out and it didn't come back on until like the start of the final stage. So I didn't really get a good like replay of it there, but watching the highlights on the way home, I was able to get a better judgment of it. And it just looked like Keselowski, and we heard Austin Dillon's interview too during the stage break also. So, according to Austin Dillon, he took some of the blame on there too. So I was like, okay, maybe, some of it was his fault. And yeah, he did move up. Keselowski wasn't moving down at all. He held his line, but he probably held it a little too much. Usually when they cross the start finish line, I mean, immediately when they cross start finish line, they shut the engines off. And it didn't seem like they did that. It didn't seem like the three of the two did that. And when they made contact, it was probably about a second. And again, things happen quick at 190 miles an hour. Don't get me wrong. And the inside of the racetrack was really rough on through the tri-oval with how low the Cup cars especially ride to the actual asphalt or the surface of the racetrack. You could see sparks flying all the time when they were trying to make a pass or break the draft down there. It was very bumpy. So I'm sure that probably, led into it too. Maybe Austin Dillon hit a bump just awkward enough that maybe that pushed his car to the right instead of him just veering right as well. So all of that just factors into once. And I mean, it happened so quick, and it was so unexpected because, again, they both crossed the start finish line. The stage is over. That's usually when they shut the cars off and try to start, going into fuel save mode under the yellow. So very scary and weird accident for where it took place, and both drivers took a little bit of blame off of it, and it was just a bad racing deal at that point, unfortunately. Is there going to be a NASCAR Heat 5 race tonight? Yes, there is. So last night, again, we were supposed to run the race, but the traffic getting out of Michigan was pretty bad. So I didn't actually get home till after 9:30 last night. There was going to be no way I was going to be able to stream, unfortunately. By the time I would have gotten everything set up and ready to go, it would have been like 10 o'clock. And definitely wouldn't have had a chance for that NASCAR Heat 5 race. It would have been well past midnight by the end of it. So I didn't want to do that to you guys or myself because I was pretty drained after the day too. But especially with what ended up happening at the end. Rest of the stage 2 results: 8th through 10th place. 8th place was Tyler Reddick. Big stage points for him, especially considering Austin Dillon was knocked out of the race. William Byron 9th and Matt DiBenedetto rounded out the top 10. Into the final stage of the race. And sorry, I forgot there was an accident early in stage 1. It was right after the competition caution. The 15 car of Joey Gase, he ended up, I think, blowing a right front tire, had a mechanical issue of some sort. I don't know exactly how that happened. We didn't get a good camera angle of it from the Videotron down below, but he definitely had a hard lick, so luckily he was all right as well. So as far as the accidents for incident go, that would have been the only one in stage 2 because, again, the Austin Dillon scenario happened right at the end of stage 2 anyway, so that led into the stage yellow. And the leaders already crossed the start finish line getting their stage points too. There was a caution for rain much later in the race. Before that, you saw more teamwork with the 24 of Byron, the 5 of Kyle Larson, like you saw there towards the later parts of stage 2. I saw a lot of people talking about how hard it was to pass, that the dirty air was very prevalent, which it was, and it always is with this 550 package. But I do have to say, the 24 and the 5 were intentionally working together. Same thing when Chase Elliott took the lead away from Larson. Larson probably just decided, hey, let's not battle, let's work as a team. Because the where I was sitting, you could see how big of a run they were getting through the tri-oval. It seemed like they were getting more of a run through the tri-oval than the back straightaway, and I think that's because the tri-oval's a little bit longer than the back stretch, so it's more curved as well. It's a wider angle into turn 1, so you wouldn't have to lift as much. Also, it's not as sharp of an angle. So I think all those kind of factored in that you could drive it in deeper into 1, and you were carrying more speed. So versus what you would on the back straightaway. But you were getting, those drivers were getting major, major runs that they could have pulled out, made a pass, but they were likely just going to sit behind one another. And they were going to race it out with a few laps to go, make it a race between themselves and not allow anybody else to get back into it. But as far as the final stage goes outside of that, they got into green flag pit stops. William Byron actually cycled ahead of Kyle Larson, where Byron was running behind him for most of stage 2 and the first half of stage 3 before those final pit stops. They were still kind of pulling away again. Denny Hamlin was chipping away at those guys, though. Kurt Busch was able to kind of latch on to the draft as well. And ended up becoming about a 4-car pack there right before a caution for rain struck with about 21 laps to go. And at the racetrack, I think NASCAR did make the right call. Under normal circumstances, I do not think it was raining hard enough that they should have thrown the yellow. But after what happened, particularly at New Hampshire about a month ago, they were going to play it safe, and I applaud them for playing it safe because that was the right move. You don't want to wait too long. Because this track in Michigan is far more dangerous than what a track at New Hampshire was. We already saw a bad accident on the front stretch earlier in the race as well. Last thing you need is multiple cars to have that at once, because the more cars that are involved in a scary accident tends to be usually the worst of the or more worse outcome than what it would be with a single car wreck. So especially again with the more dangerous racetrack, and the fact that they made that mistake on multiple occasions this year, but New Hampshire is the most recent, I think the most egregious when it comes to the rain incidents that they have had between this year and last year, or just recent years in general. They made the right call throwing the yellow. Again, and I will say too, I was at Pocono earlier this season, and the second Pocono race, there was some rain at the end of I think it was stage 1, if I remember right. It was either right at the end of stage 1, right at the end of stage 2. It was raining hard enough that I feel like they could have thrown a yellow for it with a couple laps to go in the stage. That it was raining hard enough. It was raining harder that day than what it was at Michigan this weekend, at least on my area of the racetrack. And it is a 2-mile oval also, so maybe, it was raining even harder somewhere else around the racetrack. But it was definitely raining, and I think they made the right call on that one. So leading into that caution, that you kind of assume was going to create chaos, especially at Michigan with how wide of a racetrack is. They were going to have some crazy restarts like they were having all day, 3 and 4 wide action. And on that first initial restart, it was Tyler Reddick going for it 4 wide. And here is a clip of that video, or of that accident, because there's showing. Hang on. There we go. So this was the restart. I forget how many laps we got. I think it was like 14 laps to go. You have to check it. I believe there was 14 laps to go. William Byron on the front row. He had his teammate right behind him, Kyle Larson. Denny Hamlin went up the middle 3 wide right there. Let me pause that. So Hamlin going up the middle 3 wide. Okay, that was gutsy. And we see drivers kind of pull that a lot on these 550 tracks, to get the clean air. And it either works, perfectly, or it doesn't work. With him, if he would have been in row 2 on the restart, I think he could have taken the lead with that run. The problem is he wasn't in the lead or he wasn't going for the lead on the restart. He was going more for like 3rd. So all that did was kind of side draft Kurt Busch and Kyle Larson, and that allowed Byron to get such a huge lead. I mean, you can even see it right here. Look at how far ahead Byron's pulling down the back straightaway. I mean, that run from Hamlin just killed everybody else in the restart. But anyway, further back, Tyler Reddick decided to go for a bonsai move. What was he thinking? Okay, so I understand you're trying to get the best finish you can for your team. He was not in a position where he could have won the race from 7th, 8th, 9th place, which at the time I think he was trying to go 4 wide for like 7th place. With this package, there's no way once they get strung out that far into even after like 2 laps of the run that he was going to compete for the win to lock himself in the playoffs. When Austin Dillon is already crashed out and you're going to outscore him by 20 to 30 points at least in the race, because although Austin Dillon scored a lot of stage points today, Reddick did score some stage points of his own. So he was probably going to lose on stage points, probably about 12 to 13 points, which is crucial when you have a 28-point lead over your teammate for that final spot in the playoffs. As we press play again, took it 4 wide. Kind of hard to tell at that end of the racetrack, but you can really see him start to move up the racetrack. I don't know if he lost the air. I don't think it was so much that the air in front of him caused him to move up the track as it was he was so awkward going into that corner. Again, that corner is a lot sharper angle than what it is in turn 1. He had his tires practically on the white line going into the corner as it was. Very fast racetrack at Michigan. They were already 4 wide. He's actually lucky he cleared the 2 cars that were just on his outside. Otherwise, he would have been T-boned into that outside wall. He moves up the track. He saves it. They check up the rest of the field behind. Joey Logano goes around. Who else? Christopher Bell went around. Ryan Newman and Josh Berry in the 7th. Really good all the way around. Heavy damage to the 20 of Christopher Bell. Well, really all 4 of the cars had significant enough damage to practically took it out of the running. Tough break for Logano. He was in the top 10. He had to rally up and coming from back in the field. He had to pit at the end of stage 1 in extra time that put him back outside the top 30 due to the lug nuts not being tight on the left side because he was in the top 5 early on. And he fought to get back in the top 10 just for him to get cleaned out by Reddick, unfortunately. That move from Tyler Reddick looked oddly similar to the move he pulled in his rookie season last year in the summer Daytona race when he was trying to get into the playoffs as well, when he was getting a little too desperate with a few laps to go in the race. Very oddly similar to that. Unfortunately, he didn't learn from his mistakes that day. And again, it cost him because now he, going into the final race of the regular season, is 25 points ahead of Austin Dillon, which is still comfortable. But with it being Daytona, and I think Austin Dillon is a far better super speedway racer than Tyler Reddick. Remember, Austin Dillon finished 3rd in the Daytona 500 this year. He won a dual race at Daytona earlier this year. I would not be surprised if they're using that same race car. If he scores, let's say he scores 14 stage points, Tyler Reddick scores 3. Then the deficit's down to 14. Then let's say Tyler Reddick gets caught up in a big wreck. Austin Dillon doesn't. If Austin Dillon gets a top 10, he's in the playoffs on points. He doesn't have to win. It's that easy. I mean, it's not that I make it sound easier than what it actually is, but that's the deficit he's at now. Versus he was going for 7. Let's say he just hangs on to 10. Let's say he gets shuffled out of line trying to hang on to 10th and he finishes like 12th or 13th place. He is going to score far more points. He ended up finishing 29th. If he would have just finished 13th, even if he lost a couple spots not going for it, he would have gained 16 extra points compared to what he's got now. And instead of 25 points ahead of Austin Dillon on the cutoff line, he's 41 points ahead. At that point, all he has to do is finish the race at Daytona, and he's a lock as long as no other driver wins the race. Which, he was in a circumstance where if, Kevin Harvick would have clinched on points anyway because we didn't get another different winner. So, if we get another winner at Daytona next week, it doesn't matter. He was going to get eliminated regardless of what happened today at Michigan. But man, they just I just don't understand, and I don't know. Some of the blame has to be on his crew chief too for going into the restart. Hey, we're in a good situation. Take it easy. Just take it easy. Obviously, he didn't give him tell him to do that because I think Reddick is smart enough that he would have listened if he knew that. But then again, knowing the circumstance you're in. And Austin Dillon, again, he DNF'd like 80 laps prior to about 70 laps prior to this. So it's not like he didn't know Austin Dillon was out of the race. So, yeah, man, that I don't understand that at all. Then we get into the eventual final restart of the race with 8 laps to go. There wasn't much cleanup after that. Most of the cars went sliding into the grass. Not a lot of debris was shed after that 4-car incident. So, again, they were able to kind of charge on. Very lucky that more drivers were not involved in that accident as well, because there was definitely a capability for that to be the case.
Through the Geico restart zone.
So here is the final restart. 8 laps to go. And before getting into this final restart, okay, well, anyway, so going into the actually, here. Let me just talk with a black screen for a quick second. So going into the restart, this is the same thing that happened at Pocono in the first Pocono race, what led to Alex Bowman getting in a prime opportunity to win the race. Bowman at Pocono was running in 4th place going into that last caution and restart with 16 laps to go. The top 3 cars chose to take the outside. Bowman in 4th decided to take the inside. Same thing happened here at Michigan. And just like Pocono, it's a very track position kind of race, especially with this package in the long straightaways. Yes, it creates more of a draft to keep cars closer together, but at the same time with that, it is harder to pass due to being in the dirtier air. The longer straightaways cause for maybe a little bit of an easier guess as to which driver will take what line into the corner versus the 1.5 miles. So, with that being said, again, the top 3 decided to take the outside lane. Blaney was in 4th at the time of the yellow, so he took the bottom. And right when that happened, with the Chusco mule, I screamed yes, because I knew he had a chance to win from that point. All he had to do was nail the restart, which we had seen drivers do. And the 24 got a really good push from Hamlin. And you see Denny Hamlin move up just a little bit, and Byron tries to block that, stole the momentum out, where the 18 pushed the 12 just a tad bit longer when he held the push. Easily clears the 24 and the 11 and lost the momentum. Probably lifted going up the racetrack. Blaney was clear at that point. And from there on, he just had to hang on for dear life, because he had a top 10 car. In my opinion, he had anywhere between the 5th and 8th place cars. He didn't have a race-winning car. And when you have the 200 cars right there behind you, Byron and Larson, I thought that they were going to work together to get it done. If they could have created a run, that could have been the case. But they were battling. They were battling hard. And they're in the rotation where, obviously Larson would end up getting around Byron with a few laps to go in the race. So that kind of stalled the momentum out a little bit. There was also an incident down the backstretch where Reddick had a tire. I do think Reddick spun on purpose because he was going really slow. He was close to pit lane. He spun and then stopped, and then NASCAR kept the green, so then he just rolled it like he got back in the pit lane. I was scared it was really yellow. If you guys watched the video I posted on YouTube of the finish last night, or the full race highlights that I ended up posting today, on the channel, then you would have heard my reaction to my verbal reaction to possibly a caution coming out for that, because the last thing I wanted was another restart, because that would have definitely hurt Blaney's chances of winning the race. And I've never seen him win in person, so when the opportunity came, this is what happened. I'll turn the volume up for this a little bit. feels good. It feels good. Honestly, like, so what was going through my head when that happened? I mean, that's what you live for as a NASCAR fan, to go to the racetrack, to watch your favorite driver win in person. I'd be lying to you if I said I wasn't watching that video playback a couple times last night and a few times again today, because I'm still in shock even right now. Still in shock even right now that happened, because I have gone to 23 NASCAR races, Cup Series races. That's not counting Xfinity, which I've seen Blaney run a couple Xfinity races as well. But just counting the Cup races, that was my 23rd. I have been going to NASCAR races since 2015 was the very first race I went to, so a little over 6 years to the day. A little over 6 years of going to NASCAR Cup Series races, trying to watch my favorite driver win a race. Just never happened. 17 different tracks. Didn't matter where I went. It just never happened. He always seems to run well. Heck, I was at Indy the week before when he finished second, and I was like, man, he's so close to winning, but that just seems to happen a lot when I go. Not giving up, the fact that he won't win, because, he's got a long career ahead of him. I plan on going to a lot more races, by the end of his career, that it was bound to happen at some point. I was not expecting it to happen at Michigan yesterday. Again, he had a good car, which is kind of normal, I guess, for the races I go to. He was running 5th to 8th most of the race, and just didn't expect him to, be in that position late. But I knew he had the chance, at least, when and especially being at Pocono earlier this year, seeing Bowman pull off that victory in a similar fashion, at least getting to the lead on the restart in a similar fashion, that he had a very, very good chance, if he just would have nailed the restart, that he was going to be in prime position to win that race. And man, it happened. It was awesome. It is a memory that I will never forget. Uh, Definitely the best memory I have had of a NASCAR race at Michigan. Of the 6 I've seen there, I've gotten comments, with the videos I have posted from the race already. Is that your favorite race you've seen all time? Unbiased opinion, I still think Talladega this year was the best race I've seen in person, but him winning was the best experience I have had in person at any racetrack. My first experience at Talladega and Bristol are a close second and third, right behind the experience I had yesterday. But with it being the first time getting to see it, that's gonna be tough to beat. The race itself was not the best race I've seen in person, but it was a really good race from what I thought, especially in stage one. If what happened in stage one with the great racing we saw there and very early in stage two, if we could have seen that kind of racing instead of like the Hendrick breakaway like we saw with them deciding to work as a team late in stage two and most of the way through stage three, we would have had that kind of battling for the lead between 5-6 drivers, back and forth, actually, making passes and passing each other. I think that would have been the capability of being the best race I've seen in person, but it did kind of stall out prior to that, especially Blaney winning in the end. It was going to top it. But I have to put this race, of the races I've seen all time, I think I got to put it second. Second is a good number for it. I'm going to say second or third. It's a toss-up between the first Pocono race this year when Larson blew a tire in the final lap, because that was a really good race, and then just such an unpredictable finish, too. I was obvious, because that left me in like shock, like what just happened, like then, and so did yesterday. Because I wasn't as much in shock with this, but I will be lying to you if I said I wasn't grinning from ear to ear walking out of that racetrack yesterday. That was probably the longest smile I think I've had leaving a racetrack ever before. And the cool thing is about it too was that it happened at my home track, that I didn't have to drive far to have it happen. I didn't have to drive far to go home after the race. And my family was there to see it, because most of the races I have, gone to this year, more particularly, I go by myself, So having that, experience, to have that with my family, we had 7 other people there, was truly a memorable moment, to say the least. They were kind of walking out. They're like, "Hey, are you ready to go?" or whatever. I'm like, "No, I'm not. I'm not ready." So I had to stay. Usually Michigan, so they have the victory lane on the front stretch at Michigan, and they would usually allow the fans, to come down onto the racetrack Unfortunately, because of COVID and everything, they weren't allowing that this year, which is unfortunate because in 2018, when I brought my parents to their first ever NASCAR race, my mom's favorite driver, Kevin Harvick, had won in 2018, and she went to victory lane after the race. And that was the only thing missing, was that I didn't get to go to victory lane after the race. Which in normal years, if COVID wasn't a thing, that I would have very much been able to, and I would have been at the track for about another hour after the race was over, just in victory lane. So that's the only thing. That's the only thing that I wish would have been different, is that I could have went to victory lane after the race like a normal Michigan race. But maybe there will be another time. Maybe there will be another track I'll be able to do that with. We'll just have to see. But yeah, that was just unbelievable. My question was, why Keselowski that far down after the green white check? Well, he was down there before they crossed the line, and again, I kind of went over that. I kind of briefly went over that. Well, not briefly. It went full in depth over that. So Keselowski went down. He was trying to side draft, trying to get the point back after Austin Dillon had side drafted him. And it was just a misjudged thing for both drivers. Dillon moved up, expecting Keselowski was going to move up. Keselowski never moved up quick enough. And again, it happened so quick. Like, it was so fast, because it was hard for me to even process what happened in the live moment of it, because I saw it from start to finish, but it happened so quickly. I thought Brad just turned on him for whatever reason. That wasn't the case. He just kind of stayed there. I mean, they were just racing. And again, I did also state that usually, and I could tell, especially being at a bunch of these races, when they get to the stage end, as soon as they cross that start finish line, I'm talking like the first second after they cross the start finish line, because they usually sit on the start finish line. They shut the cars off, they put the engine in reserve, try and save fuel, because they usually do that under any yellow. Yellow comes out, it's like caution's out, instead of just slowing the car down. They shut the car off. So they usually do that, and I didn't hear either one of those two cars shut off when that happened. And obviously the impact, looked as if they were still going full speed. So it was just kind of weird that both of them were still on throttle that far after the start finish line, even though it was only like 2 seconds after they crossed when the contact initially happened. So that was a little odd to me too. It was just a racing deal at the end of the day, misjudged by both. And also, I did state too that maybe the bumps had to do something with it. These cars sit super low to the ground, and the tri-oval at Michigan on the inside, particularly this weekend, I noticed compared to other race weekends. Now, granted, it's been a couple years since I've been to Michigan, because they couldn't go last year because of fans. So, 2 years ago, 2019 would have been the last race. So what ended up happening was they would go to try and break the draft, or take a shortcut, whatever they will. If they had to go to the inside end of the race, end of the stages, go to the inside down towards the apron, they were bottoming out. There were sparks flying a lot. So I wouldn't be surprised both cars went through those bumps and then got a little shaky. Maybe that's what caused Austin Dillon to move up into the two. Also, that could have very well been possible, because there was very, very little grip, I'm sure, down there with the bumps. So I'm surprised my voice isn't gone today, and I'm surprised I had a voice. Like, I had a voice to actually commentate a full race last night after it was over. I just got home just a lot later than what I thought I was going to, because of the traffic getting out of there. But yeah, by the way, yeah, that exactly, Tim, that place was packed. It was the most packed Michigan race I've been to since 2015, if not 2015 ever. I sat in turn 1 in 2015, and there were more people in turn 1 in 2015 than what there was yesterday, but I think, like, as a whole, it might have been more. But yeah, TV didn't do it justice. It was packed. Inside Uranus, welcome to the stream as well. R6, welcome. Should have gotten the checkered flag. He only gives it to kids, so. Sweet butt cheeks, welcome to the stream. All right, that hurt my fantasy because I had 42. Yeah, so I haven't actually looked at fantasy yet. We will do that after the predictions. Yeah, let me get through those predictions that I had for yesterday. I didn't have many of them. I had to make the video on the fly. We left early because we were tailgating yesterday. So, I had to film the video at like 7:30 yesterday morning. So there would have been no chance of doing the live stream like usual. Finishing results, first and foremost, top 10, of course, Ryan Blaney gets the win. William Byron ends up finishing P2. Kyle Larson, who led the most laps on the day with 70 laps led, finishes in third. He was my race win pick, and he was one of the must-haves, obviously competed for the win. Prediction correct on that. Kurt Busch finished fourth. He was one of my sleeper picks going into yesterday, and he ended up with the top 5. Led one lap as well, so good prediction there as well. Denny Hamlin finished fifth. Matt DiBenedetto had a very strong day in sixth. Led that one lap very early in the race, but outside of that, he was in the top 10 all day. He finished 6th and 9th in the stages and finishes 6th at the race end. So good on Matty D, staying out of trouble and just having a really fast race car and a really clean day. Kyle Busch ends up finishing 7th. He got a stage win in there, so good for him. Chase Elliott fell back to 8th. Fell back even worse than that. He did lead 68 laps and also got a stage win, so good for him getting the playoff point. Brad Keselowski finishes 9th, and Truex Jr. had damage early, rally from back in the field not once but twice, still finishes with a top 10 and 10th. As far as the other predictions go, Kevin Harvick, I was completely wrong on. I don't know what happened. He won the last 4 Michigan August races. He has finished in the top 2 at Michigan and 10 of the last 16 at MIS. So I'm very shocked that he didn't even get a top 10 and very, very rarely was even in the top 10 during the race. Ended up finishing 14th, so I was completely wrong on that. Saying that he was, maybe not going to compete for the win, but would at least get the top 10 and run there for most of the day. That was complete polar opposite. He was back at 20th at one point at the very beginning of the race because he had a good starting spot. I think he started like 5th or 6th. He was just dropping back. He was getting passed by like 2 to 3 cars a lap there before the competition caution. It was just really bad how that 14 was struggling. I've never seen that at Michigan in person with him before. So, again, just very, very shocking. As far as the other sleeper pick went, outside of Kurt Busch, the other sleeper pick was Daniel Suarez. He was in the top 10 at times. They would try these, random strategies to get the track position, and it would work out. And then by the end of the run, he would fade outside the top 10. He did avoid that big accident there on the second to last restart, but he still finished 22nd. He was running better than that throughout the day, but he ended up not in the top 10 as much as I would have thought. Michigan, one of his best ovals with Stewart-Haas Racing and with Joe Gibbs Racing. He has 3 top 11 finishes there. So I was expecting with the season he's had with Trackhouse to at least, maybe get another top 10 yesterday. I was wrong on that. So 2-2 with the predictions so far. And then the don't have picks I nailed perfectly. Both drivers I said you shouldn't have put in your lineup. Although Christopher Bell scored a lot of stage points, he ended up finishing 13th, so I was right with him not getting the top 10. And Alex Bowman ran outside the top 10 for most of the day. No stage points in a 16th place finish there. Bowman has not finished better than 10th, and now 7 Michigan races with Hendrick Motorsports. So I knew that wasn't one of his better racetracks, so I wasn't expecting him to do as well, even though I expected Hendrick as a whole to do pretty good outside of Bowman. And I nailed that prediction perfectly. Byron finished second, third for Larson, and then Elliott won a stage and led a lot of laps as well, finished with the top 10 and 8. So yeah, I was completely right on that. It's just so weird that not all 4 of them were up there, and Byron was so far off the other 3. Bowman was so far off the other 3, but I mean, that just, for whatever reason, that's just not his racetrack. Kevin Harvick will win Daytona. He very well could. Harvick had damage from the beginning. Oh, he did? Oh, see, I didn't even know that. Yeah, I didn't even know that. See, there's some things you can catch in person that you would miss on TV, and there's some things you miss on TV that you won't catch in person. Oh, I forgot to set your fantasy lineup. Well, that's stinks. On the bright side, you didn't have a chance at the regular season championship because you've only been playing for half the season or something. But you don't want to forget starting in a couple weeks because we only have 1 week left. So now we'll review the fantasy because this is the NASCAR Fantasy Podcast on the channel. So first and foremost, I'll review my team and then we'll look at the top scores in the league from this week. So at the racetrack, I was not getting good enough service to unfortunately switch my picks out. So my garage driver was Kurt Busch, and he ended up finishing top 5, 4th, scored some stage points. That hurts my fantasy team because the guy that I would have swapped him out for would have been Joey Logano. Actually, I would have swapped him out for Kevin Harvick. Logano was he was the worst scorer on my team because he got involved in that late accident, but I would have swapped him out for Harvick because of how poorly Harvick was running. Unfortunately, I guess I would have left 13 points back. That's one thing. You go to these NASCAR races, and it's very hard to get internet connection just with how many people are there. There's 2 racetracks I've ever had good internet connection. Or oddly enough, Pocono, even though that track's in the middle of nowhere, for whatever reason, I had great internet connection both days I was there, Saturday, Sunday, so I didn't have an issue with it. And then I think the only other racetrack was Nashville, but that was very close to like an inner city, so I think there was just there was a lot better like service there. Um, so those 2 tracks are the only tracks I've had really good internet access that I was able to actually change my lineup throughout the race. I could not do it at Michigan this weekend. I was a little frustrated because there was only 2 races left, and I was second in points coming into today, and I knew I had a good lineup if I just could have put Kurt Busch in, but I tried to get it loaded up, and I couldn't do it. So I guess it helps you guys out that are in the running for the championship that I left 13 points away. Now, I did play a strategy with the bonus points. The rest of my team, outside of Logano, I had Ryan Blaney, who won the race. Chase Elliott ran top 10 all day, finished 8th, won a stage, got some stage points in stage 2 as well. Harvick struggled, unfortunately. Keselowski got a top 10, got some stage points as well. So, good fantasy team outside of, Logano wrecking late and Harvick not having a great day. And where I made up for it was in the bonus points. So I picked Kyle Larson to win the race, but I played a strategic strategy that I only did one other time this year, and it didn't help me, but I figured, let me try it again. So, usually when I take the winner or predict the winner on my fantasy team, say I picked Kyle Larson this week. Usually I would pick Larson, then I'd pick Hendrick to win, then I'd pick Chevy to win as well. Well, I split it. So that way, in case Hendrick didn't win this race, that maybe another team would win the race with that said manufacturer. And I took Team Penske with a Ford because Fords have won the last 6 races and now 7 at Michigan. So I was thinking, okay, maybe another Penske Ford's going to go to victory lane. So I was like, if, for whatever reason, Larson doesn't win or he's not there for the taking, that I would, have at least splits bonus points. That, yeah, I'm not going to get them all, but I'll have a backup plan in case Larson doesn't win, that I get at least 20 points instead of 0. And that exactly happened. I got 20, plus I had Ryan Blaney as my top 4 because he seems to run really well at Michigan in recent years. I wasn't expecting him to win again. I was expecting him to maybe have a top 10 day, but like he had, but I wasn't expecting him to win. Well, he won, so he was the top 4, and I had Denny Hamlin as a top Toyota. So altogether, I had 30 bonus points. I think that's the most bonus points I've had in a single race this season, and that wasn't even predicting the right winner. My race win pick finished 3rd of Larson, and he was only 1 spot out of being the top Chevy behind his teammate William Byron. So a lot of bonus points there. Now, for the first time, I'm going to check the standings from yesterday. So at Michigan, DRG in the chat, the real DRG in the fantasy league was the top scorer with 207 points yesterday at Michigan. One without setting his actual lineup. Yeah, let me see this. Let me see who he had on his team. So DRG had Kyle Busch, who had a great day, top 10. Denny Hamlin, who had a top 5, great day. Kyle Larson, who had a top 5, great day. Scored the most points, I think, total of anybody in the race as well. Matty D had a great day, finished top 10 and reigned there all day. And Keselowski got a top 10, so his fantasy team was stellar. Obviously, why he won there. And he didn't have any bonus points because he forgot to place the bonus points. So, yeah, he won this week despite not setting his team. But, man, hate the rain. I was going to win by a lot. Oh, were you ahead by a lot at that time? Man, that stinks. It did rain, though. It did rain. I can confirm it rained. And then Inside Uranus ended up breaking out that points lead a little bit. So even though you didn't win Inside Uranus, you do expand that points lead by an extra 12 points over me, who ended up finishing in 3rd. So now we look at the league standings. 1 week to go to crowning our regular season champion. Again, you can join the NASCAR Fantasy League. Search for KRC League on the NASCAR mobile app or website. When you go to Fantasy, sign up with your email. It's free to join, and you have a chance to win 2 tickets to any race of your choosing in 2022, excluding the Daytona 500. If you win either the regular season championship or the playoff championship, you're automatically eligible for the playoff championship just by simply playing and being in the league at the start of the playoffs. So you only got 1 more week. Well, I guess technically 2 weeks to join up until then. Again, everybody in the league will qualify for the playoff and that possible prize. Inside Uranus, of course, as I mentioned, still has the lead and has slowly expanded that lead now to 51 points. Right behind me in third, I'm in second, by the way. In third is P-Shat Motorsports, Patrick Chatterley, who just joined the chat, so welcome, Patrick, is sitting, see, off the lead. I'm just going to get my calculator out here so I can do the quicker math and get this thing wrapped up. So P-Shat Motorsports currently is 138 points off the lead. And then Andrew Hollenbach would be in fourth, about 153 points off the lead. Just behind him, another 17 points back, is Tyler Burbeck. And then Tim Irvin just outside the top 5 and 6. Still mathematically at least has a shot going into Daytona. He is just less than 200 points out. We saw this week our winner had 213 points. Again, the top 6 have a mathematical chance of winning the championship for the regular season this weekend, especially with the regular season championship being at Daytona. So all 6 of you guys have a good shot to win this one, win this championship. If you're over 200 points back, it's going to be really hard to gain that many points. But again, Daytona, if the big one strikes especially, and you have your drivers get through it, and the guys ahead of you, have drivers that are wrecked in it, then it's going to get wild. That is for sure. But it's going to come down. One more week left. I can't believe we've flown through the season. 25 races are in. We only got 11 to go, and only one more until the playoffs. Just crazy how quick the regular season flew by. Let's pick the same drivers for a lineup, so that way you automatically outscore me. Yeah, because even if I got the bonus points, I think, just over 50. You can only score 50 bonus points. So yeah, even if I had different bonus points and got them all, I would still lose by 3 points. But we'll try not to do that. I will still give my advice like usual. The must-haves I always have on my team, unless I don't have any more usages left of them. And like I always say, if you have those drivers in the must-have, start them. The sleeper picks, most of the time I listen to my own advice, not all the time. Listen to it this week with Kurt Busch. Unfortunately, I couldn't put him in my lineup because I was at the track with no internet service. All right, so we talked about that. We talked about the race. We talked about the predictions and how they went. Now the only other thing we have to talk about is our power rankings, our updated power rankings. These are my top 10 drivers for the championship. Of course, the playoffs start at Darlington in 2 weeks. But these are my top 10 title contenders, with number 10 being my 10th most confident pick, number 1 being my most confident. My top 4 would be my championship 4 if that was next weekend. So this is where we're going to start off with this one. This is really tough. Brad Keselowski has had a few bad races. He was outside the top 10, but this guy, again, I think he's got to stay at number 10. Let me pull up last week's rankings, by the way, just so I know where some of these drivers were from last week and exactly where they changed going into this one. All right, so number 10 on the list is still going to be Christopher Bell. Christopher Bell did score 9 stage points in stage 2, and yes, he finished 13th. And I know Brad Keselowski beat Christopher Bell this week. I know Kurt Busch beat Christopher Bell this week, but Christopher Bell has been on a much hotter streak than both Kurt Busch and Brad Keselowski going into this race. Since the break that we had for the Olympics, the last 3 races that we have had, Brad Keselowski, yes, he got a 9th at Michigan yesterday, but 24th and 35th the 2 races before that. Christopher Bell in those same 3 races. I know he did not finish in the top 10 again this week, finished 13th at Michigan, but he ended up finishing 7th back at Watkins Glen and 36th, unfortunately, at the Indy Road Course. I did not realize he finished that far back in the pack. Kind of forgot. But he was running up inside the top 10 most of the day. He got taken out in that big accident in turn 5 on the curb broke. So I don't want to really fault that against him too much. And Kurt Busch, I guess, might be a little bit hotter than Bell. We'll see here. 13th at Watkins Glen. Bell beat him there, but then a top 10 at Michigan and Indy, top 5 at Michigan, of course, 4th and then 6th at Indy. So I guess, you know what? We'll change it. We'll throw Kurt Busch at number 10. I'm making a late change. I do that every now and then. So late change. Christopher Bell is not in my top 10. I lied. Kurt Busch is going to be number 10 on the power rankings list. Kevin Harvick is not on it. He just locked himself into the playoffs on points this week. Tyler Reddick's in the top 16 right now, but he's not on it. He's obviously not locked in either. McDowell and Almirola way too far back in points to catch up. And then Keselowski and Christopher Bell would be the first drivers outside of my top 10. Coming in at number 9 on the power rankings list is going to be a driver who moves back a little bit more, and that would be Alex Bowman. Bowman does have 3 wins. He was 7th last week on the power rankings list, but he did not have a great day yesterday. Ended up finishing 16th. And not only that, but his momentum has really dropped back. He's 12th in points, so still outside the top 10, so he's not looking to get any extra playoff points for finishing in the top 10 at the end of Daytona for being in the regular season running. His 3 races since the COVID break, or sorry, not the COVID break, since the Olympic break have not been good. In fact, his best finish since the Olympic break was this weekend at Michigan, 16th, 17th at Indy, and 20th at Watkins Glen. Unfortunately, it has not been a good set of races here for Alex Bowman. I think that 2-week break was actually really bad for Bowman because before the 2-week break, 1st at Dover, 8th at Coda, 5th at Charlotte, 9th at Sonoma, even 6th in the All-Star race, 14th at Nashville, step back, but a win at Pocono, 7th at Pocono, Road America, a bit of a step back, 22nd, but then 4th at Atlanta and 9th at New Hampshire. He only had 2 finishes outside the top 10 in a 10-race stretch, but since the break, he's got 3 finishes outside the top 15, so that's a little concerning. Again, the playoffs are coming up here next week. He will have playoff points with those 3 wins, but those are seemingly going to be his only playoff points because, again, he is not in the top 10 in the regular season standing, so he won't get points there. And as far as the stage wins go, he doesn't have any stage wins. Wow, okay. So, yeah, Bowman doesn't even have any stage wins either, so he's got 15 playoff points. Drivers that have the same amount of playoff points, if not more playoff points than Alex Bowman, would include Denny Hamlin, William Byron, Ryan Blaney, Chase Elliott, Kyle Busch, Martin Truex Jr., Kyle Larson, Joey Logano once the playoffs start, because where he's at in the actual point standings versus Bowman, unless Bowman goes out and wins this weekend at Daytona. But yeah, that Bowman's definitely sliding back. So he was 7th, but now he's back to 9th. Dark Crypto, welcome to the stream, by the way. Thanks for everybody hitting that like button as well. We got 10 likes already. Greatly appreciate you guys down in the chat. We'll get that NASCAR Heat 5 career mode race underway here very, very shortly. Just wrapping up the power rankings list. So again, Christopher Bell just misses out on the top 10. He's probably the first driver out. Coming in at number 10, so did Brad Keselowski. He just missed out, as well as Kevin Harvick on the top 10 this week. But anyway, top 10, we ended up having Kurt Busch. Sorry, you kind of lost train of thought there for a second. Kurt Busch at number 10 and Alex Bowman at number 9. Number 8 on the list is going to be Joey Logano. Logano's got 1 win so far this season. Definitely the highlight of the year. He does have a couple stage wins, currently 4 stage wins on the season. And he is in the top 10 in points. He is in 8th. But the drivers that were behind him going into this race that I think are going to be on the upswing. William Byron's been a lot more consistent throughout the course of the season. He's much higher in the regular season points than what Joey Logano is. And his teammate Ryan Blaney, who just picked up his 2nd win of the season this weekend, has finished in the top 2 in 2 straight races and has a better running right now in the standings than Joey Logano as well. I had to move Logano down to 8. He was in 6th last week. So with that being said, now we move up again. So going to number 7 following this race. And this is a toss-up between William Byron and Ryan Blaney. These two drivers obviously have been very, very close as far as the running order towards the front the last couple races. If we look at their stats since the break, and maybe even just before the break if they're both good. If they're both similar, I'll go before the break too. But specifically since the break, William Byron, 2nd at Michigan, right behind Blaney, 33rd, unfortunately, at Indy. But even before the curb broke, he was running in, 4th place. So very good day going for him there. And then Watkins Glen, he finished 6th, where Ryan Blaney has a win at Michigan. And then he ended up finishing 2nd at Indy. Watkins Glen, I know he finished outside the top 10, 14th. Very, very similar. I think I have to put Byron in 7th and Blaney 6th. And the only reason is because they're very similar in stats before the break. Very similar in stats after this break for the Olympics. Before the break, Blaney was on a little bit hotter of a streak. 5th, 20th at Road America, but then 6th and 5th. So Ryan Blaney has only finished outside the top 6 3 times in the last 10 races. I didn't realize he was on that. I knew he was on a little bit of a hot streak, but I didn't realize he was on that big of a hot streak. That's counting the All-Star race where he finished 5th, by the way. So if you count the All-Star race, the last 10 races for Ryan Blaney, he's only finished worse than 6th 3 times. He's got a win, obviously, in that stretch as well, winning at Michigan yesterday. So that team's definitely better. And honestly, people were kind of poised for Blaney to have his breakout season this year. Maybe this could be the year that he wins more than one race. Well, not only he's done that, he's the furthest running Penske driver in the point standings right now. He's ahead of Logano, he's ahead of Keselowski, and he's got more wins than both Joey Logano and Keselowski now this season, which I think is surprising. I don't think a lot of people expected that going into this year, especially when Brad scored, 4 wins last season. So, I mean, this is shocking, even for me as a huge Ryan Blaney fan. This is shocking that he is outperforming both of his teammates this year. I guess this is what Roger Penske saw in Ryan Blaney and why he extended his contract for another 3 seasons last year. So, very big if you're a Ryan Blaney fan, much like I am. Now we get into the top 5. My first driver who's just going to miss out on the championship 4, if I had to pick right now, would be Martin Truex Jr. I got Martin Truex Jr. at number 5. The only reason he is ahead of Ryan Blaney and William Byron is because he's got, again, 3 wins on the season. As far as the stage wins go this year, Blaney's got 4, Truex has 5, so he's got 1 more stage win there. Byron, I think Byron's got 3 stage wins, so he's got a decent amount too. But Truex hasn't beat there. He's got him beat in the race wins. Top 10s, Byron does have the most of the 3. Truex has more than Blaney by... Lost Blaney's stats there for... Oh, no, he actually has the same amount of top 10s as Blaney. He's got more top 5s than him, though. He's got 1 more top 5 than Blaney, same amount of top 10s, and 1 more win, 1 more stage win. That's really the only reason Truex is ahead of Blaney. He's only 1 spot ahead of Blaney in the regular season points right now. As far as... And not even by much either. Truex has 2 more points than Blaney on regular season points, so that could be another playoff point on the line at Daytona this weekend as well. So, I guess look out for that mini battle within the top 10 in points. But that is why Truex is number 5 on this Power Rankings list. The Championship 4 does change a little bit. Denny Hamlin moves up to number 4 on the list right now. Denny Hamlin is riding a quiet but hot streak, much like he was at the beginning of the season. I think at the beginning of the season it was more prevalent that he was on a hot streak because it was the very beginning of the year. We were seeing a lot of different winners, so it wasn't like we were seeing Larson win a bunch of races. You know, Truex didn't even win his 3 races. He won 1 early in the season, then the other 2 didn't come till like midway through the season, right after the first third. So we weren't seeing those guys kind of just go out dominating, winning a bunch of races, and that's why Hamlin's hot streak of finishing in the top 5 early in the season was more prevalent. But if we look at the last couple weeks, fifth at Michigan, Indy, he was running good until he ended up being involved in an altercation that he probably should have been involved in, considering Chase Briscoe was black flagged. And even if he didn't know he was black flagged, you would have had to assume he should have known he was going to get black flagged for cutting the course and dumped Hamlin. Unfortunate circumstance there. Denny was so close to a win. Watkins Glen, Hamlin finished 5th, 10th at New Hampshire, and that was even after spinning on lap 6 because of the rain. He rallied back from that. 13th at Atlanta, not so hot, but then 5th at Road America as well. So Hamlin is he's not quite back to where he was at the beginning of the year, and that's why he's not in the top 2 of my power rankings list like he was at the beginning of the year. He's at number 4, though, because that kind of consistency will get you to the championship 4. I know you don't have the playoff points if you're Denny Hamlin because you don't have a win this year, and you're probably going to lack a little bit more playoff points because unless he outscores Larson by, 22 points this weekend, he's not going to win the regular season championship, which, I mean, Denny Hamlin is, in my opinion, the best super speedway racer in NASCAR currently, so that is very much possible that he can do that, but I don't see it happening unless Larson gets involved in the big one. Hamlin does not. I could be wrong. I could very much be wrong. And again, especially because Larson doesn't seem to run well. Larson did have a top 5 in the Daytona 5, or top 5 or top 10 in the 500 this year. I know he finished in the top 10. Let's see, where did Larson finish in the 500? 10th. Yeah, he did have a top 10. And he finished 7th in the dual race this year, too. So, I mean, if he does that, he's definitely going to win the regular season title. But it is not impossible there for Denny Hamlin. As far as the top 3 goes, going to stay the same. Chase Elliott, number 3 on the power rankings list. Kyle Busch, number 2. Kyle Larson, number 1. Larson obviously is number 1. He leads the regular season point standings now. That could be an extra 15 playoff points on top of his 6 wins already this season. And his amount of stage wins. Remember, he's got 12 stage wins on the season as well. Kyle Busch just picked up another stage win this weekend, as well as Chase Elliott. But Busch has been a little bit more consistent on the ovals compared to Elliott. I know Elliott's been really good on the road courses, and that's where his wins come at. But remember, there's only one race in the playoffs that is on a road course. And even though Elliott's winning the road courses, Kyle Busch is still getting consistency on road courses, and he's running in the top 5 for most of the race. He would have had another top 5 at Indy if he didn't end up getting involved in that accident with the curb braking. So definitely going to put Kyle Busch ahead of Chase Elliott. Elliott is definitely a close 3rd place, right behind Kyle Busch's 2nd, but I have to give the edge to Busch just because the ovals, and we only have one more road course race the rest of the season that can maybe bail Elliott out with another win. Elliott is performing better in the ovals now than what he was at the beginning of the season by far. Again, we saw him win a stage and lead 68 laps at Michigan yesterday, but it seems like Larson and Busch are ahead of him on the ovals more on a consistent basis, so that is why he is there. So that wraps it up, guys. Thanks for everybody tuning in for the NASCAR Fantasy Podcast live edition here tonight on the channel. You can check out my race highlights video on YouTube for the Michigan analysis. I also have separate videos uploaded for both the finish of yesterday's race with that the first couple laps off the final restart and the actual final lap as well, coming to the white flag, and the post race along with it, at least with him doing the parade lap. I'm a huge Ryan Blaney fan, as you see with the banner in the background, so it was a dream come true finally getting to see my driver win in person after 23 races of not having that happen, and for it to happen at my home track with my family there again. It was very, very good feeling. NASCAR Heat 5 Career Mode at the Indianapolis Road Course coming up next on the channel. I'll see you guys very, very shortly, and we should have another wild one. Let's see if we can get the dub here tonight.